Good morning, YouTube. This is Mike from the Last Corvette. So, I normally check my YouTube channel comments like twice a week. I'll either do it midweek, like it is today, Wednesday, and then maybe over the weekend, because obviously the YouTube channel is more so just keeping track of all my projects. It's not very big, but one of the comments left was, hey, can you do a video on a C6 specific, I assume, code, which is P2127. Now, the code itself is very common, across all makes and models. Some codes are specific to, let's say a GM product, Ford product, Stellantis, and other various makes and models. But 2127 all goes back to reduced power. Most of the time you'll get a message of reduced power. Now on C6 Corvettes, and we'll focus on C6s, even though that kind of basically covers a lot more generations. 2127 is a reduced power mode because you just lost a throttle by wire comms with either your gas pedal or your throttle body, because they're interconnected, right? So new cars don't have a cable running from your gas pedal to your throttle body, whatever, your butterflies in the carburetor. So what happens on the P2127? First thing you need to do is, obviously, if you go into a reduced power mode, you need to get a scanner. You can either go to a like auto parts store and just use their scanner to figure out if you have a single code or multiple codes, because under normal conditions, your GM product is just going to say, hey, you're reduced power, basically limp mode, okay? Um, but the same thing can happen, a different code, obviously, for various reasons. So on Corvettes, let's say, for example, when I replaced my wheels and tires, I had to reteach my tire pressure sensors. Well, it was reading basically zero on all four tires, on all four positions, and same thing goes into a reduced power mode for safety reasons, okay, especially on a vehicle like that. But that's also very common, once again, across the board of vehicles. Or you could have one tire that's at zero, right? And then it just puts you into or below a certain percent. Normally it's right around 20 psi, and it'll put you in a not a reduced power mode, but it's going to disable some of like the competition modes and stuff like that. All safety related. Now, 2127. If you get that code, if you verify that code, first thing you want to look at is obviously your response. So, in other words, when you start the vehicle, it'll start normal, it'll idle normal, and then you'll put it in gear regardless if it's an automatic or a manual transmission. You'll push on gas pedal, and you'll basically get nothing. You'll just basically you'll get a rolling start, and as much as you press on it, you'll get nothing. So the first thing to look at is, obviously it's a little tight, but push your seat all the way back, climb underneath, make sure your harness is fully engaged, it's not damaged or shredded. Normally the harness going into the pedal and the plug will be just fine. There's really nothing there, unless somebody tapped into the wires for whatever reason or did some work there, they'll be just fine. Now, to remedy the gas pedal itself, you need to purchase a new module or a new assembly. It comes with the sensor, the TPS sensor, or the throttle position sensor on the pedal side. And yes, you can buy a used one, but I mean, it's like $80 to, let's say, $180, or I should say versus $180 if you buy them new. You can also go to a dealership, you'll pay a little bit more, but website that I use a lot is gmoutletparts.com. If you actually go on the website, even though it's a local dealer to me, I still go on the website because you get a huge discount if you purchase it through their outlet store. So yes, 2127 normally goes right back to the throttle position sensor on your gas pedal. Now, Your other side of the link is obviously your throttle body. So you do have a throttle body position sensor as well. That one will most likely throw a different code for a throttle body position sensor. But I've seen it where you'll get a 2127 and it's actually the harness in between your gas pedal and your throttle body. Okay, so the throttle body harness that lives in the engine compartment, that one can for sure be compromised, either from dry rot over the years, maybe somebody worked on it, they pulled the harness off, they pulled the pins out, they're not fully seated, once again, corrosion, or some other, various defects. So normally what I do is, no, I don't have this issue on my current C6, but I've seen it on other vehicles. So normally what I would do is obviously run the trouble codes, figure out if you have one, two, or multiples, check my connection at the pedal, and then you have to realize basically the throttle position sensor either at your throttle body or your gas pedal is just a rheostat. So it sees zero and then it applies it as you move the pedal in. Same thing with your butterfly at the throttle body itself on the intake manifold. So it basically everything is calibrated between the throttle body to the gas pedal. So there's a calibration process that you can go through. You do need not just a scanner, you actually need like a Tech 2 or a sophisticated type of a computer to do that, to put in a calibration mode. Most regular scanners, that's all they do. They just scan. They don't calibrate anything. You can't change parameters. But yeah, 2127, start with the gas pedal first. It's really easy to replace. You unplug it, you get a couple of bolts, whole thing comes off, you put it back on, and you're good to go. But you replace that only if your harness inside the vehicle, and then you can trace it over to the throttle body, is good, meaning that you don't see any breaks. Now, of course, you can take it a step further. And if you have, I shouldn't say simple tools, but like a voltmeter, you can definitely ping the wires, okay? And you'll need some pretty long leads, which you can buy, online or Harbor Freight. It doesn't really matter. Or you can even make your own and go and get some wire, like 16 gauge or something like that, and run it through and basically ping your wires going from the pedal over to the throttle body and see if you're actually, got full transfer in between. Easiest, I'm just trying to explain in the easiest ways. Once you verify that the harness is good, then you're pretty much good, right, on that part. So now you can start purchasing the gas pedal. Now, the the throttle body position sensor, I don't have the specs for it in front of me, but you can check that as well with a voltmeter right on the pins. You can get alligator clips and you can actually manually open and close your butterfly. You're gonna have to obviously remove your cold air intake or whatever you got, your tube that connects it to the original airbox or an aftermarket one, and see if the resistance changes. And the same thing you can do on your gas pedal, and that will tell you if your sensor at the gas pedal is bad or if it's the throttle body itself. Now, the best advice that I can give you guys is if you have this 2127 code, you check the harness, you check your resistance on both sensors. Most of the time, it'll fall back right to the gas pedal itself module, and just buy the whole thing and buy it new. I always say something cheaper like that, and especially it's still in production, it's still available. So just buy it, replace it, and forget about it, and you won't have any issues. Now, of course, the reason they go bad, they wear out just from age. Moisture is another one. You see a lot of electrical throttle body position sensor issues, like on flooded cars or cars that have been in the water. Water gets in there and then corrodes, and then you're basically left with a limp mode. But in a nutshell, 2127, on C6s anyway, always goes back to the gas pedal, like 80% of the time. The other 10 is split between the harness and then the throttle body itself. Now, the keynote to point out is if, and this actually I've seen on a C7, if you port your throttle body, make sure you port it by somebody that knows what they're doing. Because if they overport and you have a huge gap, you're not necessarily going to get a limp mode, but it's going to throw everything off how your vehicle responds, and it's going to be just all over the place as far as the throttle input. So that's one. Now, if you don't want to port, you can just buy an oversized throttle body if you're building up your vehicle either NA or boosted. Okay, you can go to like a 103, 102, whatever. But yeah, in a nutshell, I'll end it as this: 2127. Check your gas pedal sensor. More likely, it's the culprit. But if you have the ability, if you have the time, if you have the tools, you can jump further in, check the harness in between your gas pedal and your throttle body itself. And then, like I said, the other 10% is the throttle body itself, which you would replace anyway. Talk to you guys later.